Welcome back to another episode of Awkward Christian Questions with Drew and
Grace.
Grace. You know us by now.
Oh, I'm so awkward.
I got to apologize for something right off the bat, though, because we have kind of been slacking recently. You know, we wanted to do 2 of these per month. I remember over Christmas, we're like, oh, we're going to knock out a few over the holidays. We got some time off. You know what we did? Well, I should say what I did. I ate too much and fell asleep in various places throughout the house.
Yeah, we've just been really busy, but we're really glad to be back with you today, and we've got a really good question for you.
You know what, though? Instead of saying you're busy or lazy, the better spin is to say we took a Sabbath.
Oh, okay. It was intentional.
Yeah, that sounds so. You can't challenge that. Yeah, it's not lazy. You just took a Sabbath, and now we're back, and we are tanned, rested, and ready.
And I'm not tanned.
No, I'm not tanned either. But you know where I got that? Do you recognize that expression?
No.
It was a reference. It was like a slogan that referred to Nixon when he ran for president.
Oh.
Tanned, rested, and ready. That's a little education for your millennial generation right there.
All right.
And you're right. I'm certainly not tanned, but I am rested and ready. So let's jump into it. We've really got a truly awkward question this time. And before I say what it is, I want to say who you can blame for it. It came from my lovely wife, Grace. So if you're feeling judgy, you might want to direct that towards her because she came up with a question. And here it is. What if I'm not excited about the prospect of going to heaven? Sounds bad, I know, but maybe you can identify with this. Maybe we can explain a little more. Grace, what was behind this truly awkward question?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm the only person that's ever felt this before, but I have to admit that when we talk about heaven, I get a little scared. I certainly don't want to go to the opposite of heaven, but the idea of eternity in a place that's like really nice and pleasant and everything's fixed is intimidating for me. I I love the idea of being close to God, but I guess I just don't really know what heaven's going to be like. And I just kind of envision it as this place where everybody's nice all the time and in a place where our relationships are different, and that makes me nervous. I like my relationships here on earth. I love being married to you and our family, and it's not going to look exactly the same in heaven. We know that from what Jesus says when the Pharisees ask him who you'll be married to in heaven, and that always made me a little nervous. Like, I know it's probably a comfort to some people, but for me, that made me nervous. And then a lot of the fun that I've had in my life has been somewhat like moments of slight mischievousness or creativity. And I wonder if there's going to be need for either of those things in heaven. Like, if everything's already solved and God's a great creator, like, are we going to create things in heaven? And like, are we going to have a good laugh? Because that's like some of my favorite stuff on life, this side of life. So, yeah, I'm a little nervous about the idea of heaven.
Yeah, no, and I tease you, but I've had this exact same thought. I remember as a kid thinking like, oh man, I don't want to be in the perpetual choir forever. I mean, I love singing, don't get me wrong, but is that all it's going to be? And we're going to be floating around on a cloud. And of course, a lot of those are misperceptions when you actually read the Bible. And yet I get the apprehension. Or like, take this. Here's an analogy, if you will. Someone came to me and they said, hey, Drew, I'm taking you on vacation. I'd be like, cool, you paying for it? That's awesome. Where are we going? And they're like, oh, I can't tell you. You've never been there before. Then I'd be like, oh, okay, well, now I'm a little nervous. Oh, and there's one more thing they tell me. It's not a vacation. You're going to go there, you're going to move there, and you're going to stay there forever. Right?
Forever and ever.
Forever and ever. Now I'm really nervous, right? Do I want to do this? I mean, even if it's my favorite place on earth, do I want to stay there forever? So I totally get that apprehension. I've had it myself, and I don't think you're the only one. I don't think we're the only ones. I think other people have felt this as well. And then there can be some guilt for even feeling it or articulating it, because of course it's the ultimate hope. It's being unified with God, reunited with loved ones. So there's a lot to look forward to. And then if you don't feel that excitement, you're like, is there something like a deficiency with me spiritually? So I totally get it. I think a couple of things that I'm interested in your take too, because I know you've been reading about the topic. One of the things that comes to mind is that it probably entails a failure of imagination on our part, and just because we're human and we're finite.
Yeah.
I love what C.S. Lewis says about this. I forget what book it is, but he compares our limited understanding of heaven to a child's understanding of pleasure. Okay. And he says, just like a child cannot comprehend romantic or erotic love and might only think of like playing and eating chocolate, although chocolate's pretty good. But we, in the same way, we can't really understand heavenly pleasures because we are only familiar with earthly ones, right?
Sure.
So it just may be that, in this analogy, like we're like children, and there are pleasures that are just beyond our understanding that we can never grasp while we're children or while we're on earth that heaven will hold for us. And so it's hard to kind of imagine those from our vantage point. Another place he says that we're like children content to, what does he say? Make mud pies in the slums and can't imagine what is meant by a vacation at the ocean.
Sure. Okay.
So I think there's an element of that going on here for sure. Because ultimately, I think at the base of all our longings and the things that you mentioned, like being in love, having relationships, adventure, laughing, at the base of all those longings is this desire to be fully known, to be fully loved by others and by God. And ultimately, heaven, if we believe the Bible, and we do,
Mhm.
promises to fulfill all of those things and have that unmitigated unity with God. So that's great. And yet, I get it. It could be hard to comprehend that, much less anticipate it. And sometimes we just cling to what we know and we don't want things to change. We want it to kind of remain like it is. And I think that's natural.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts
Well, I guess
before we get into the silly stuff?
before you get sure. I guess one thing is I did look through every passage in the Bible about heaven, kind of in thinking through this question a little bit. And the one thing that occurred to me when reading through all the passages was the emphasis on its governmental type nature, that it's really like a kingdom of heaven. Like we
Yeah.
have this idea of kingdoms from government here on earth. And even I think about when God allowed for the Israelites to choose a king that wasn't his original will for them. But kingdom is really like has an order and a heaven, and it's like a place
Mhm.
under a perfect order. And that actually is really comforting to me, especially in our time when I feel like there's so much corruption and
Mhm.
so many awful injustices happening in our world. The idea of living in a place under perfect, virtuous order is like very appealing.
Yeah. And with a
Um,
perfect, virtuous king,
with a perfect,
right?
virtuous
Yeah.
king. So I think it's just more of like increasing my imagination and heart for the idea of heaven. In general about like maybe it will be a lot like Earth, but just under a perfect order. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's true. And I think too, as you get older, and of course, I'm middle aged, so maybe this is happening a little more already, even from my 20s, say, is you start to get more of a longing for it as you go. Part of it, I mean, I think God conditions you for this as you lose loved ones that you long to see again, because that's part of the promise of heaven,
Right.
is that you're reunited with loved ones. And so I think as you get older, I think for some people, when you're like 20, you're kind of like, hey, life's pretty good for the most part, right? And I want to do some things before I go to heaven. And yet when you get up into the 60s, 70s, 80s, I talk to a lot of older saints that just have this longing to see Jesus, to see their spouse maybe that they've lost, or their parents, or whomever. And I think that is kind of maybe God's way of prepping us to go to heaven.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we got an expert joining us who's written a book on this, so I'm looking forward to that. I know he's going to have some great thoughts on it. But let's have a little fun in the meantime, okay?
Okay.
Because the silly section this time is 7 signs you barely made it into heaven. And listen, I know, okay, you're right there. Some people are going to get mad and say, what do you mean barely made it into heaven? Hey, have you read the Bible? 1 Corinthians actually talks about this. It talks about people who make it as by fire. In other words, all their supposed good works get burned up and they just slip in by the skin of their teeth. So this is deeply biblical. Well, not what I'm about to say, but the premise anyway. 7 signs you barely made it into heaven. Here we go.
Okay.
When you walk through the pearly gates, St. Peter hands you a broom and says, get to work. That's a bad sign. And of course, is St. Peter even guardian? I mean, that's just sort of a cultural
That sounds like the setup
belief.
of every joke of heaven
Yeah,
I've ever.
exactly. St. Peter's
St.
chilling there
Peter,
at the
you
gate.
barely got it.
Well, and here's the thing. Even if you have to work in heaven, I mean, you might, you're still walking on the golden streets. You have to sweep them, but you still get to walk on them. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Okay, second sign that you barely made it into heaven, you get a golf clap when you walk in.
What's a golf clap?
Oh, the slow, polite, very restrained. It's not wild, raucous
Like,
applause.
we missed you. We're so excited to see
Yeah,
you.
no, it's sort of like,
oh,
oh, that guy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing, this is kind of like, okay, he made it, but barely. The third sign, you barely made it into heaven. Your house in heaven is right beside the freeway.
That's funny.
This raises all kinds of other.
But would you even hear the noise?
There you go. Or would there even be a freeway in heaven? There's a lot of assumptions baked into that are probably a little
And it's
faulty.
probably mansions.
That's right. Well, no. Okay, just a minute though. This is going to be a real wet blanket for some people. Did you know that the Bible never promises mansions in heaven?
What? That was the whole thing I was sold on.
You were in for the mansion. No. Yeah, like the verse is like, in my house are many, in my Father's house are many mansions. That's the King James version. Bad translation. Sorry to tell everyone.
Okay, this is news to me.
This is okay. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but in the better readings of the Greek, there are, in my Father's house are many rooms.
So we're all going to be under the same roof?
In the rooms. Yeah, and actually the image, oh man,
That's
this is a
even
real
more
rabbit
scary.
trail. This is a real rabbit trail. But the image that's being invoked there is of the paterfamilias, the kind of the father that has a house. And as the family grows, he adds rooms to the house and it
Oh, I can see
expands,
that.
right? And so God is the center of it. And there in my house are many, many rooms. Sorry about that. No mansions, although maybe they will be. We don't know.
Well, the main house is going to be a big mansion.
Well, and there's streets of gold, so there's some bling. Okay. All right. Number 4. Sorry, I got sidetracked. Got to get back to this very important list. The number 4 sign that you barely made it into heaven. An angel opens the book of life, and there's an asterisk beside your name. Dumb, but that would be a bad sign. The number 5 sign that you barely made it into heaven. When people see you there, they say, "Really?"
That guy? Ooh.
The number 6 sign that you barely made it into heaven. Your life review is heavily redacted. Now, I don't know if you get this. Okay, so there were these evangelistic tracts that Christians handed out a lot in the 80s and 90s. They were Jack Chick tracts, and they were absolutely terrifying. They always ended with like demons pitchforking someone into hell. But when you made it to heaven in one of these tracks, there was a life review. There's like a big screen TV, and then everything from your life flashes on this life review, and then God kind of makes the call. So that was the reference there. Not too many people get that.
Because too much edgy stuff.
Yeah, there's just too much bad stuff, man.
Yeah.
They're gonna give them the PG made for TV version of your life review. That's a bad sign. Number 7, the final sign that you barely made it in heaven. All the angels roll their eyes when they see you.
That's actually amazing.
Thank you. You liked one at least.
That was funny.
You liked one. All right. And as always, Grace, amazingly, we have another sponsor for this episode.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's been quite a run we've had. They're paying us big dollars. Yeah.
I mean,
Who else? Well, there have been some
Men
Christian company.
Camp.
Yeah, that's right.
Modest is hottest.
And this might be the weirdest one, though. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to read it.
Let's hear it.
Here's the ad read. This episode is brought to you by Cloud Cover, a revolutionary new app that will greatly enhance your experience of eternity. You want to be with God forever in heaven, but let's face it, there are some people who will be in heaven that you might want to avoid. Cloud Cover employs universal GPS technology to give you real-time data about exactly where all the annoying people in heaven will be. This is terrible.
It's so
Hey, don't blame me, though. I'm just reading
the
this.
whole purpose of heaven.
Maybe. Your aunt who posts conspiracy theories on Facebook? That guy at church who stands way too close to you and has horrible breath? Who wants to deal with that for all of eternity? Well, now thanks to Cloud Cover, you won't have to. Remember, just because Jesus loves them doesn't mean you have to hang out with them forever. Go to heavenenhanced.com and download Cloud Cover today.
The angels are rolling their eyes.
Yes, I think everyone's rolling their eyes at that, but I got it out of my system. Love it. Okay, well, now we're going to get a little more serious. I'm glad the guests don't know about these dumb segments that we do before they agree to come on. But we're going to talk to Matthew McCullough and get some more insight on this crucial topic.
I'm looking forward to hearing what Matthew has to say.
All right, I am joined by Matthew McCullough. Am I saying that right, Matthew?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Okay, I nailed it. Awesome. I appreciate you doing this. In addition to being a pastor of Edgefield Church in Nashville, you are also an author, and you've written a couple of books. You wrote a book called Remember Death, Memento Mori, baby. That's what you should have titled it, by the way. You
I
know,
tried.
you tried. I was wondering if the editors shut you down on that. They're going to go, everyone's Latin's a little rusty. Let's go
Yeah.
with Remember Death. Now you've got a book, a fairly new book called Remember Heaven. And the
Yeah.
first thing I thought is I'm sensing a theme here. Is this a cry for help? What's going on, man?
Oh, man, a cry for help. Maybe buried down in there, yes. It's at the very least a cry for some attention to the things that matter most and
There
that
you
are the
go.
easiest to forget. That's what ties them together.
That is
We-
well said.
yeah.
Yeah, no, and I love that. And you, that really came, I loved your book, Remember Death, because that came through. Because, yeah, we have an aversion to thinking about death, and yet
Yeah.
there's so many benefits to keeping your mortality front and center, which isn't easy to do, especially in our culture. But that was a
Yeah.
great message.
Well, I mean, so that book was a bit of a passion project just from seeing how impactful death awareness was for Christians in generations before ours and how absent it is from my experience of American Christianity and from what I saw in my own church, among my own friends. But I felt like coming out of um, that book by design did a lot better job at toppling false hopes,
Hmm.
allowing death to expose one after another of Jesus' competitors so that Jesus is last man standing. And that was what I tried to do with it. But it did a lot better job at the bad news than at the good news. And so remember, heaven is like, okay, if there's one man standing, how can we leverage the hope he gives to us for the lives we're living now in the meantime? So
Hmm.
if the first book was a bit of a stick that drives you to Jesus, this one's more like the carrot.
I like it. Jesus's competitors. There's a good book title, maybe for your next one, talking about idols.
Yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to this topic though of heaven, what's the most common misconception that you run into that people have about heaven?
Yeah. I think all right, I'm going to give you a two-part answer. One is probably to give you the straightest answer, I think the most common one would have to be that heaven is some sort of spirit world, not a material world, not something that requires you to have a body to fully enjoy, not something that will have, a fulfilled version of all the things we love best about this world. And that is what the Bible teaches, that heaven is a real place, that a new creation, a new heavens and a new earth in which we'll need new resurrected bodies. Uh, but so that's the straight answer to your question. The less straight answer to your question is that actually, um, I think the biggest issue that I run into is not a misunderstanding of heaven, but just a lack of awareness or interest in heaven in the first place. I mean,
Hmm.
the book is driven by a target audience that isn't really asking questions about heaven and can't really understand why they should long to be there. For a variety of reasons. I just think heaven is off the radar for the people I was most hoping to reach.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. Both of those things, because you're right. A lot of people have this sort of Gnostic view of heaven that we're going to be all
Yeah.
these spirits floating on clouds, when, of course, the Bible describes, I mean, you look at Jesus's resurrected body, right? He's eating
Yeah.
fish, he's got
Yeah.
scars, and that's how our bodies will be too. And so, yeah, it is a physical, albeit very different reality and realm.
Yeah.
And then you're right. Now, to that second point, that is something that I've seen, and maybe this is a generational thing. Like, I grew up in the church, my dad was a pastor, and at least from my memory, there was a lot more talk about heaven like 30, 40 years ago. And I feel like maybe it's younger people that there's maybe been a pendulum swing. It's like, hey, man, maybe we focus too much on heaven, and it can be this kind of pie in the sky thing. We need to
Mm.
really focus on this world. There have been some theologians that have kind of, I feel like, contributed to that focus, even N.T. Wright, like, hey, this world
Yeah.
matters. So let's not focus too much on the afterlife. What is your response to that? And have you seen
Yeah.
the same thing? This may just be my limited experience, but that's what I've seen.
No, I mean, I've seen the same thing you are. And I think I felt that pull even in my coming up years as an adult, reading theology, reading Wright and others in his ilk. I certainly, there's something compelling there. And I think it is possible to think and talk about heaven in a way that's distracting from things that matter to God here and now in this world. That's what we ought to be focused on. What is important to God? And if we're using heaven as an excuse for not paying attention to things that he says are important here and now, that's misusing heaven, and we should stop doing that. But to stop doing that doesn't mean like stop paying attention to what he's told us about our future as his people. That would be an egregious overreaction to what might be a real problem. Because there is nothing more relevant to our present than what we expect for our future.
Right.
That's why the Bible goes there so often. I mean, what the book itself is, my book is an attempt to take what the Bible says about heaven, but specifically to look at how heaven is being applied to life here and now. Because usually, when heaven is talked about in the scriptures, that's what's happening. It's not like it's this theological treatise or this this metaphysical you know speculative metaphysical take on what it'll all be like. It's much more often applied to a real problem or a real a crisis here and now, with heaven
Hmm.
as the antidote, or heaven as the medicine that we need for coping. Heaven as the perspective we need to keep going. Because I mean, life is tough, isn't it? I mean, it's just so full of suffering. It's so full of suffering. The brokenness of this world is inescapable, and it all ends in death unless God has done something to overcome that threat for us. And if He has, there's nothing more relevant you could focus on than what He's done about that, how you get in on it, and what difference it makes for the meantime. I mean, one of the images that I use in the book is to think about heaven less as this insurance policy that you've got there in case God forbid you ever need it, but which gives you the freedom to go about living your own life on your own terms, getting as much out of this world as you could possibly get. That'd be the bad way to do it. And to think of heaven more as a trust fund, this inheritance that's set aside, that's fully funded, that's set there in stone by the accomplishments of Jesus.
Hmm.
But that's a trust fund that you can live on now, even while we're waiting for full possession of what He's promised us. We can draw from that hope now, and it changes our experience of life in the meantime. That's what I'm trying to do with the book, is just show how that happens. To look at several different examples of how you can use the hope of heaven to lift the burdens that you're carrying in life now, and that the more you do that, the more you try to use hope to lift those burdens, the stronger it becomes. It's just like weight training.
Hmm. I love that. And it's so true. When you look at the biblical passages about heaven, they're often written to people that are being persecuted, that
Yeah.
need hope. And so it helps to elevate your vision to think of our ultimate destination.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember years ago talking to a friend of mine, Mark Buchanan, who's a pastor and writer, and he was talking about being at a funeral. He was doing a funeral, and he had this 25-year-old guy come up to him after and say, "Hey, good sermon, but I'm not really into all the God stuff." He said, "For me, I don't need eternity, or life justifies living. I travel a lot. I have a lot of great experiences. Life's pretty good." And I thought Mark, my friend's response to him was very wise. He said, "Hey, that works for you right now. I don't doubt it, that life justifies living. But I wish you could come with me on some of the rounds that I do to
Mm.
people that are dying, people that are in chronic pain, people who are, mere weeks or months away from death. And you try that life philosophy on them, and it
Mhm.
may not have the same resonance as it does in your life. And
Mhm.
that's where we're all going. This life doesn't last forever. And so it is crucial to have that eternal focus. Okay. So here's my other question for you.
Okay.
And this is embarrassing because I've felt this myself, and I hear this from people. So they're like, "Okay, I'm going to heaven. That's good, and yet, what's going to happen there? Am I going to be handed a harp when I walk through the pearly gates, and then I get to sign up forever in a choir to sing? I'm not really a singer, and I just have to do that for eternity." And then they
Yeah.
feel even guilty about it because, like, I should really
Yeah.
want to go to heaven, but that doesn't sound like a total blast to me. So, what do you say to
Yeah.
someone who's nervous that they're not going to enjoy heaven
Yeah.
because what they've heard about it, and it may be misperceptions they have, doesn't really sound like a good time?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. I mean, there's a couple of things I think in response to that. One is, I would really strongly encourage them to read more about heaven because their images for heaven are incomplete. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't actually just tell them to read my book as much as I'd love to help them through the book. I'd tell them to read a few other books that have really helped me. And most of all, I'd want to point them to the places in the scriptures where the afterlife, where the new heavens and the new earth are described, because it doesn't involve those harps, and it does involve a lot more of what you love most about life in this world now. Because big picture, here's the reality: anything we enjoy now, we enjoy as a gift from God. That's an expression of His goodness.
Hmm.
He's like a fountain. Every other good thing is coming as a stream from that fountain, and in heaven we get to drink him straight.
Hmm.
So Psalm 16 would be a great place to start. The presence of God is the place in which we enjoy fullness of joy and pleasures forevermore. In this life, fullness and forever are not options for us. Even the best things, we want more from them. We are grasping at them, and they kind of turn to vapor in our hands. And even the best things, even the things that do feel satisfying when we have them, they don't last.
Hmm.
I mean, time is an ever rolling stream. It takes everything away, and that is never going to be good enough for us. And and yet in heaven, according to Psalm 16, we will enjoy finally fullness forever. The two things that are limited in all of our joys here and now. So I'd push them to do more reading and to do more thinking. And then the
Hmm.
second thing I would do is say, all right, even with this whole worship service vibe that we get from the Bible that we're not so sure we would enjoy, I would want to push on that a little bit more. Like I've felt the same things that you're talking about. I look at Isaiah's vision in Isaiah 6, and there's all these angels singing holy, 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 like on repeat forever. And I think, man, like, will I have to? and and then when I think about it a little bit more, I realize, well, okay, well, what if they're singing that not because they have to, but because they want to? Like,
Hmm.
what would they need to be seeing and experiencing to where praise is the only thing they want to do with their lives? I can think of times in my life where I've been undistractably happy,
Hmm.
where I've been so absorbed by something I couldn't look away, no matter what else you threw at me. Sometimes that's been like, at the last few pages of a just incredible novel where the author's it's just hitting on all cylinders. Everything's working. It's coming in for a landing, and you're not going to distract me. Um, I'm a big sports fan. I've been there, and in the fourth quarter, in the last couple of minutes of a big game, you are not going to distract me. I remember watching my wife come down the aisle at our wedding. You were not going to turn my eyes away from that woman making her way towards me. And I think about the times when I've been undistracted, undistractable. Uh, Man, I wasn't bored, I'll tell you that.
Hmm.
I was fully engaged because fully happy. And if if to see God as he is in his presence unmediated means that I'm going to sing holy, 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 holy for all of eternity, that won't be because I'm bored, but because I'm experiencing a joy I've never, just only barely tasted so far
Hmm.
in this life. So it'll be fine. It'll be fine. I just want to be there for whatever it is. I just want to be there for it.
That's awesome.
Mm,
Oh, that's
mm,
beautiful. I like those
yeah.
analogies too, because you're right. There are those transcendent moments in life where we are so happy that we can't be distracted. And that's how it'll be times 1,000. So that's really
Yeah.
cool. Well, thank you. That's it, man. These are brief, but you're really helping us kind of go a little deeper on this topic. And for people listening to this, if you want to go even deeper, please do pick up Matthew's book, Remember Heaven, Meditations on the World to Come for Life in the Meantime. I like that because heaven is not just for when we die. It's something we need to be cognizant of right now, and can give us that hope and imbue our lives with meaning in the moment. So thank you, Matthew. We will have you back on if you're kind enough to do it in the future. I appreciate you making the time.
I would love to. Anytime. Thanks for having me. This has been a joy.
All right. Well, that was awesome. Appreciate what Matthew had to say. Some great insights on the subject of heaven. I particularly enjoyed what he had to say, the analogies about when his wife was walking down the aisle, how no one was going to distract him from that moment, and heaven will have moments similar to that. But now it is time for the final word. And I get to give the final word, which is refreshing because usually when the two of us are hanging out, I never get the final word.
Oh, come on.
Oh,
That's so nice.
and that's not true either. Am I a last word freak?
You do 90% of the talking.
Well, I do most of the talking, but am I the kind of person that needs the last word? Maybe. I don't know.
I think so, because I think I usually just walk out of the room if it's one of those kind of situations.
You know what?
Follow me back in the other one, giving me the last word.
I am sorry, folks. We're hitting you up for free marriage therapy here. But I'm going to get into it here. The final word. And I'm going to start by saying something a little controversial, and that is, I don't think we know much about heaven. I have read whole books speculating, they're well-intentioned, but they're speculating on exactly what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be doing it in heaven and what animals will be there and what foods we'll eat. But when I read the ultimate book about heaven, that is the Bible, the details are actually pretty scarce. You know, it talks about a heavenly city. It talks about a kingdom, like you mentioned. It talks about worshiping God and being reunited with loved ones. But it doesn't really address the kind of details that we crave.
Yeah.
Like, what will our bodies look like? Will we be able to fly? Is my pet going to be there? No, when the Bible talks about heaven, it focuses primarily on its chief inhabitant, that is God.
Yeah.
And it emphasizes the gifts of being in God's presence. No more crying, no more death, no more sin, no more pain, no more darkness. So when we think about heaven, we don't know exactly what it'll be like, and that can be frustrating. The truth is, we'd probably prefer something more familiar. We want our life on earth just souped up a little bit, just better. But I don't think heaven will be much like it is here. Again, to quote C.S. Lewis, I already did a couple times, but when he contemplates this question, he says, reality never repeats. So we know heaven is going to be different than what we're used to. So why should we even look forward to heaven? Why is it the great hope of the church and every individual Christian? I think it's just because God will be there and we can trust him. Jesus said he went to prepare a place for us. We don't know exactly what that place will be like. Frankly, it's probably beyond what we could comprehend here on earth, but we can be assured that God will be there. And because he is, it's going to be amazing. That is the final word. Well, hey, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. You know what? We are actually encouraged by the early start of this podcast. We've said many times it's an experiment. We're not pros by any means, but we've been really encouraged by the feedback we've gotten. We've got 2,000 downloads already, and that was great. That was more than I was expecting. Now, it could be that 2,000 people have listened to the podcast, or it could be one person listened to it 2,000 times. No? Okay. I'd actually like that even better, because then you know you got one rabid fan. But if you do enjoy these conversations, please leave us a rating or review on Apple or Google Podcasts or Spotify. I think we got 4 reviews on Apple, and I treasure every one of them. You can be the 5th. I promise you rewards in heaven, but I don't think those are mine to give out. But thank you for listening. And until next time, stay awkward.
Yes, thank you, folks. And I gotta say one other kind of cheesy thing.
Don't.
I'm really glad that you're gonna be in heaven with me.
Oh, well, hey, we're not there yet, so just, thank you.